Hey, what's going on guys? This is Tom here, and today I'm going to give my full review on the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra 5G. Now when Samsung released this phone near the start of the year, they made it pretty clear that this phone is one of the most premium phones available, with huge specs and a hefty price tag to go with it. I have done a video about the S20 Ultra's box contents before, but in this video I'm going to give my complete thoughts on all aspects of the phone to see if it might really be the best smartphone of 2020. Now starting off with the camera system this phone is packing, there is so much to talk about here. For their main sensor, Samsung decided to use a massive 108 megapixel camera with a sensor measuring at 1/1.33 inches. While this is a huge sensor, when divided up over 108 megapixels, you only really get a pixel size of 0.8 micrometers, which is too small to do much with, so you really need a bright subject with no dark areas or you get lots of grain and generally low quality photos. To fix this, Samsung does this pixel binning thing where it gets 9 pixels and just merges them into 1 pixel, so you can get a clean and quality 12 megapixel photo. From this, I have found the main camera to perform really well and produce photos I'm pretty happy with, except I've occasionally found that there can be some trouble focusing on a subject and the white balance can be a little bit off at times. Now the second camera that Samsung's got for us is a 48 megapixel telephoto camera that can give 4 times optical zoom and 10 times hybrid zoom. Now, that zoom will need a relatively long focal length. How the heck's it going to fit in such a thin phone? Well, it turns out Samsung is a step ahead and they've made it a periscope camera, which is something Huawei has done before, but the point is that the camera's pointing sideways in the phone and a mirror gets it to look where you want. Now, I have tested this camera out a little bit and I found it performs a lot better than most other phones and I can get quality pictures at up to 30 times zoom. Samsung has advertised that that camera can do 100 times space zoom, but photos from that are pretty poor and you're almost better off just cropping in on a 30 times zoom image. Okay, so the third camera on the rear of the phone is a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera that can capture pictures with a 123 degree field of view. I'm personally a big fan of this camera and it takes really good photos of any big objects or scenes that are really close up to the user. The quality is obviously not going to be as good as a picture from the main sensor, but I still think the camera is really useful and performs well overall. Now the last camera on the back of the S20 Ultra is a small time of flight camera. This camera is just there to measure depth and is used together with the main sensor in the live focus camera mode to get clear and quality portraits with good background blur. Now looking at how the rear cameras perform with night mode shots, I think it works really well most of the time. While I don't think it does as well as Apple and Google can do with their new phones, the Samsung night mode can still completely light up the area well, and the big sensor on the main camera means there's rarely much visible grain. The smaller telephoto and ultra-wide sensors have a little more trouble shooting in the dark, but photos from those sensors still get a pass from me. Moving on to video capabilities, Samsung's main sensor can do 1080p and 4K video at 60 frames per second, and can also capture 8K video at 24 frames per second. Almost all 4K video comes out looking clear and very good quality, with optical image stabilization also helping video on the go look very smooth. With 8K footage, yeah, it's great and all, but at 24 frames per second it can feel really choppy at times, and the roll and shutter can also make the video look pretty bad when moving. Plus most people don't even actually have an 8K screen to watch the footage on, and to make the most of the video resolution, so it's kind of just a waste of storage space on the phone. Now quickly looking at the selfie camera on the phone, we have a 40 megapixel camera that sits as a punch hole in the front display. I don't normally like taking many selfies, but from the few shots I've taken with the front camera, it seems to perform pretty well, definitely not as good as a rear camera setup, but still what you kind of expect. It can also do 4K video and take pictures at night, but I haven't really found either of those two to be too amazing, but they still do alright most of the time. Now moving on to the design and display of the S20 Ultra, I really have so many mixed feelings about it. So the front glass display measures in at a massive 6.9 inches corner to corner, which is really great for scrolling on social media and most everyday usage, but since the aspect ratio is 20:9, most video media won't really make the most of the big screen. The screen has the option to be set to 1440p at 60Hz, or if you lower the resolution down to 1080p, you can use the screen at a super smooth 120Hz. I don't really mind the resolution drop because that still helps it to save battery at a high refresh rate, plus most people don't actually notice the difference between 1080p and 1440p. Now, to try create a generally more immersive experience, Samsung has used a small centered punch hole for the selfie camera. I do prefer the punch hole over being stuck with a notch, but I think it would have been much better if Samsung had pushed the punch hole to the corner of the screen, or if they'd just gone with a little pop-up camera. For the S20 lineup, Samsung has gotten rid of their really curved displays in favour of a new display which still has some small curve around the sides, but it's a lot more discreet and less noticeable, which I think is perfect. Now flipping over the phone, the back panel is a glossy glass that only comes in cosmic grey and cosmic black. Like, come on Samsung, you couldn't have done anything more creative than grey and black? Anyway, looking at the top left, we have the ridiculously large camera module with the 4 cameras, the flash and the microphone. Next to the periscope camera, Samsung felt the need to write down the 100 times space zoom feature just because they can. Looking around the sides of the phone, we have a thin aluminium frame running around the whole phone. At the bottom we can see a USB-C charging port and a speaker and the lack of a headphone jack. I don't really mind losing the headphone jack too much, but it's still a bit annoying in some cases. On the top there is a SIM card tray, and along the right of the phone we have both the power button and the 2 volume keys. I would have liked it a bit more if they had put the volume keys on the left of the phone, but I don't really mind too much. Moving on to the phone's performance, it's right on par with what should be expected of a 2020 flagship. Now there is both a Snapdragon and an Exynos chipset version of the S20 Ultra, and the version in stores depends on what region of the world you're in. For Snapdragon model phones, you can easily expect pretty fantastic performance, as a Snapdragon 865 chipset is another big step up from the fast performance of the 855 Plus last year. If you're in a region like Australia and the Exynos version is what's available, like the phone that I've got, then you might find a pretty different story. Other people such as Mr. Who's the Boss on YouTube have found that the Samsung Exynos chips can provide pretty good flagship level performance if for short times that isn't quite as good as a Snapdragon model, but poor heat dissipation in the chipset means the Exynos model warms up a lot and can lose lots of performance after using performance intensive apps for a while. Both chip versions of the phone do have 12GB of RAM as base though, so you can always expect easy multitasking for fast loading of memory. Now for the software of this phone, Samsung has got One UI 2.1 running on Android 10, which is pretty simple and familiar for most people. Samsung has still got Bixby as a default voice assistant, and Bixby is just nowhere near as good as the Google Assistant or Siri, so I just switched so I only use Google Assistant on the phone. Samsung has also said that this phone, like all Galaxy phones, will be receiving full software support for 2 years since release, and phone security updates will keep coming for a total of 4 years. As another one of the key specs Samsung talked about, the S20 Ultra has a huge 5000 mAh battery powering the phone. While this at first seems like it could last for ages, it doesn't really end up that way. With a pretty large screen and most people using the phone at the 120Hz refresh rate, the phone will usually only last 7 to 10 hours of screen on time between charges, depending on what you use the phone for. If you're using the Exynos powered phone, then reports have found that you could get 1 to 2 hours less screen on time than you would with the Snapdragon chipset. Despite those problems, its battery can still easily get almost anyone through a full day easily. Now moving on to all the other features that this phone has, it's pretty clear to see how much effort Samsung has put into it. For all S20 Ultra models, 5G comes as standard, which isn't super useful at the moment but will improve over the next few years. To unlock the phone, there is both face recognition and an ultrasonic in-screen fingerprint sensor available. While it did take a little while to get used to positioning my finger right and pressing it down for the right amount of time, the fingerprint sensor is really fast and can work well most of the time. Under the back glass of the phone, we have NFC, wireless charging, and reverse wireless charging available, so your phone can charge other wireless charging phones or devices. This phone also supports 45W super fast wired charging, and a 25W charger comes with the phone in the box. We also have a good sound system for the phone, a quality vibration motor, and several more small details that give this phone a more complete feel. As of when this video is being made, the 128GB model of the S20 Ultra costs $2,000 in Australia and $1,400 in the US, so it's a pretty big sum to pay out for a mobile phone. While this phone does have some of the best specs you can find in a smartphone right now, and it's probably going to end up being the best smartphone of 2020, the actual value for money spent is pretty low compared to some of the mid-price phones going around right now. However, if you're after a big phone upgrade, you want to be involved in some of the best phone technology about, and you're not an Apple fanboy, then this phone could be perfect for you if you have the budget. Okay, so that just about wraps up today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then please be sure to drop a like down for the video. YouTube Analytics shows me that nearly 94% of you guys aren't subscribed, so if you could please subscribe, that would be amazing, and please be sure to tap the little notification bell so you can hear about future videos. Let me know down in the comments if there's any other tech content that you'd like me to cover in another video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.